somebody that I have absolutely adored his books. I have them all marked up, and especially when I went through a very big transition, and the book Callings was really something that brought me into clarity about what I'm here to do. Gregg is joining us from Santa Cruz, California this morning. He is the author of Callings, Finding and Following an Authentic Life, published by Random House, and also Vital Signs, The Nature and Nurture of Passion, which is published by Penguin. He's the former behavioral specialist at USA Today and a regular blogger for Psychology Today. And I can't wait to hear what he's going to share with us. So welcome, Gregg. Thank you for joining us.
You are most welcome. Thank you, Diana, for the introduction, and hello, everybody. Okay, so I'm going to put you guys to work today. Hope you don't mind that. I'm just going to take the first maybe 7 or 8 minutes. It's going to be the only time during the morning that I'm going to hold forth. The rest of the time is participatory. But I just want to take a little bit of time up front and just set the context. And so let me do that. This may be an odd way of introducing a webinar, but it has taken me 10 years and a plague to finally come around to actually doing them. I love teaching, but I've always been a very kind of high touch, low tech kind of presenter. So I've always opted for the in-person teaching opportunities. But that, of course, has all abruptly changed, as most of our lives have actually abruptly changed. I'm essentially in the business of public gatherings. So lectures and workshops and retreats and conferences and such. But all of those have pretty much been going the way of the dodo bird lately. If you're a teacher of any kind, or you're a performing artist of any kind, or you work for a company whose doors have closed, you're having to also adapt, as am I, at least if we want to keep sharing our work with the world and, of course, making an income. And at the risk of being blunt about it, nature has a pretty simple word for those who are unable or unwilling to adapt. I think it goes as much for the individual as it does for the species. All right. So clearly the pandemic is calling us to adapt. Okay, which is really just another way of saying to grow. So some of you may be familiar with a guy named Abraham Maslow. All right, Maslow is the psychologist who gave us the hierarchy of needs pyramid. All right, at the bottom, food, clothing, and shelter, and at the top, self-actualization. Although right before he died, actually, he added a new pinnacle to that pyramid, and he called it self-transcendence. But this is what he said about the old pinnacle, which was self-actualization. He said self-actualizing types. Okay, so these would be the people who tend to fulfill their potential, also tend to be the kind of people who make the growth choice over the fear choice routinely. All right, but Joseph Campbell, who gave us, of course, the hero's journey, said that phase 1 of responding to a calling, which of course is the beginning of any hero's journey or heroine's journey, phase 1 of responding to a calling is running from it. Okay? It's resistance and fear and self-doubt and maybe even anger at having your boat rocked, okay, which of course callings specialize in. Though it's possible that the degree of resistance that you might have to whatever the pandemic may be calling for from you is proportionate to the amount of power and growth that are waiting to be unleashed. Okay, when the no finally turns into a yes, that is, all right? So the pandemic, of course, is offering us an AP class, a graduate level class in boat rocking, okay, as well as an adaptation. And the fact is humans have actually proven themselves to be extremely good at adaptation. All right. But whenever a vaccine finally shows up for the coronavirus, it is going to be based on the following wisdom, which is really the basis of the entire science of immunology. And that is that you introduce a little bit of chaos into the system to strengthen it. Okay, you shake it up for the sake of helping it evolve. Okay, I think it's interesting that in the central creation story in the Western canon, which of course is Genesis, chaos with a capital C is described as the condition of the earth before it was formed. Okay, so what I take that to mean is chaos precedes creation. Chaos precedes creation. And if you deny yourself the one, you're going to deny yourself the other. Okay, so this webinar is really an exploration of how your own life might grow and evolve as a result of this unprecedented event that we're all in the middle of. Okay, so through a series of self-reflective questions, and those of you who've taken any of my workshops before, you know this is really my MO, is asking you a lot of nosy personal questions, and sharing and discussion and small group work in the breakout sessions. You're going to have a chance to look at what the chaos in the coronavirus may be calling for from you. Okay, whether this is creatively or professionally, interpersonally, spiritually. All right, it's really kind of an opportunity to take a bit of an inventory. All right, step outside, look back in through the shop window at your life. Okay, like, how are you responding to this event? What are you learning? What are you discovering about yourself? All right, where are growth and creation being evoked? Or provoked is probably more the case. And at least for the next hour or so, I'm going to ask you to consider these questions in a personal context, not a planetary context. Okay, so this is not so much about what is this event calling for from us, from humanity, but what is it calling for from you? All right, what is it calling? So don't think of it so much from a philosophical point of view, like what is the ultimate purpose of this event for humanity? But if this is a reset, how is it a reset for you? All right, so we're going to look at questions along the lines of what wants to emerge or awaken for you right here. All right, what is being given an unexpected entrance cue by this event? What course corrections are being called for? What silver linings are appearing? And of course, what do you want your new normal to look like once, the pandemic is more in the rear view mirror? All right. So once again, I'm going to invite you to either grab paper and pen right now, or open up a new window on your computer where you can put a Word doc. So you can toggle back and forth between the Word doc and the Zoom session. And for those of you who, like me, typing keeps up with your synapses better than longhand, maybe that's the go-to option for you. But get ready to do some writing right now. So I'm going to give you maybe a minute per question to respond to them in writing. And then we're going to open it up to do some sharing, just to hear some people's responses, because they're quite juicy, I think, and instructive. And just hit that raise your hand button, and I'll see a little blue hand icon appear next to your name. And I'll just call on people sort of randomly. And unmute, share, and then mute again. And I'm going to ask you to try to monitor the muting portion of the show. We had a woman on a webinar I did last week who kept forgetting to mute herself after sharing, and she had a cage full of noisy birds right behind her. So the webinar started to feel sort of like a Alfred Hitchcock movie after a while. So I'm going to ask you to try to monitor the muting thing. Okay, so everybody ready? Here's the first question. Science tells us that an asteroid ushered out the dinosaurs and gave the mammals underfoot, including our forebears, a shot at prominence, okay? So I'm going to use that as an analogy for the first question. When the dinosaurs, if you will, and for some people they are dinosaurs, of the status quo are sidelined, which of course for most of us they are at the moment, parts of you that are normally overshadowed might have a chance to come out into the light, all right? So I'll give you an example. I have a friend who owns a retail store. He said that because he doesn't have any customers coming through anymore, though he's in the store doing the online part of his business, he's discovered that without customers, this is actually a huge relief for him after all these years. And he's discovering that he's more of an introvert than he ever realized. And in fact, that his identity and even reputation as Mr. Social doesn't actually fit him anymore. So now he's getting to explore the more introverted side of himself. So my question is, what, if any, parts of yourself have you seen coming out more into the light as a result of this event? Any parts of yourself that are really coming to the fore as a result of it? And jot down whatever those might be. All right, so as promised, let's open this up and hear from a handful of people. Anybody want to weigh in? What parts of yourself are you noticing coming to the fore as a result of this event? Anybody want to share? Diane.
I'm really noticing that everything false is falling away. There's so much more authenticity, more purpose, more clarity about who I am and what really matters in life is revealing itself. I've discovered that I love preparing food at home. I much prefer that to going out to restaurants, which we used to do a lot. And I don't have to do all those errands and everything. So there's much more focus on our life and well-being. And it feels really good. We've really benefited from this.
Wonderful. Thank you. You do have to do more dishes that way, but...
Well, my husband does the dishes. So
oh, very good. Okay. Let's hear some others. How about Elizabeth?
Yes. Well, you were talking about the shopkeeper discovering that he was more of an introvert. Well, I've kind of been a little bit more of an introvert myself, and I work from home. I do web design and graphics. So I've actually, my work hasn't really changed. In fact, it's gotten really busy during this pandemic because all my clients want to stay in contact with their clients by e-blasts and videos and that type of thing. So I've been very, very busy and no problem with me staying at home, but I've felt a need to connect more with people. Since this pandemic started. So now I'm feeling like, oh, I'm kind of in my house, but I really need to get out and see people or connect with them somehow or another on Zoom or FaceTime or, but I felt a real strong need to connect.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that. How about one more? Carrie?
Above all, I think the most profound thing for me was that I enjoyed most the lack of control I had. So I have 5 children, I run an online business, I'm busy all the time. And all of a sudden, being told you can't go out, it was a giant relief. I found that I'm a great candidate for bunker living. I have no desire to leave my house. I could probably do this for another year.
Wow. Wow.
I don't have to spend as much money. I don't have to meet the expectations of people. I don't need to make an excuse for why I don't have to be someplace. And in fact, I don't have to be anywhere. And I love it.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think there's quite a few people who are actually having that feeling that they're kind of relieved from some of the things that they normally would have had to do. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask another question. I have a friend of mine who normally eats every meal out. Every meal out. He said for the first time in 20 years, he is shopping and cooking Okay, so my question is very straightforward. What, if any, activities are you engaged in now that you were not engaged in, generally speaking, before the pandemic hit the fan? Any activities, or even something you've habitually said no to all these years that now you're suddenly saying yes to? See what comes up. All right, anybody want to weigh in? We figured out how to do the hand raising thing. Any new activities that you're engaged in now that you weren't prior to this? How about, is it Ton?
I've been given permission to rest.
To rest?
Because, you know, I'm eternally just here, there, and everywhere and commuting for work and stuff. And so I have more time in the day now to just nap.
Nap. Yes, napping is an underrated pleasure. All right. Thank you for weighing in. I appreciate that. How about Melissa?
Hi there. Yeah, I've gotten into baking bread, which I haven't done in 20 or 30 years. And I'm also spinning. I have a lot of spinning wheels around my house. So I've been spinning yarn and trying different dyeing techniques in my microwave, which I'm now finding Kool-Aid works the best. So just odd projects at home, which I wouldn't have stopped long enough to do.
Ah, okay. Wonderful. Thank you. How about Elizabeth?
One thing I have been doing that I haven't done before is I've been trying to get out of the house around my neighborhood where it's safe. And I used to just be on the way going somewhere all the time. So I never really stopped to really look around my neighborhood and look at all the beautiful gardens. I've really been enjoying the beautiful flowers and plants and everything. Everybody has such beautiful yards in my neighborhood that I've seen some really unusual flowers and things I've never seen before. So
okay.
Kind of smelling the roses, so to speak.
There you go. All right. Thank you. Wonderful. All right. Another question. What, if any, risks have you found yourself taking that you wouldn't normally be taking? Any risks? Like, for instance, for me, I would not normally be entering the brave new world of online teaching. And that's a steep learning curve and involves some risk for me, some novelty. So what, if any, risks have you noticed yourself taking since this started in March? All right. So, Tricia, I think your hand was up from the last round, but you by any chance want to share in this round?
Sure.
Great.
You know, just in the last bit of time, I have moved up from Orange County, Dana Point, and I'm in the wilds of Washington State on the peninsula. And I find myself, instead of living on Trader Joe's food, I am going to the Red Dog Farm and picking up my weekly supply of green things that I don't know the names of, but I just cook them and eat them.
Okay. Aha. So you're changing up that whole routine and habit.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you, Tricia.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Let's hear some others. Anybody else want to share any risks that you're taking?
You know, as I look at it, it's my routines have been really interrupted. I have been used to going out frequently and going to meetings and entertainment, but especially my regular routine of swimming, of being a swimmer, and also for my back issues. And so I've found that it's a risk to be not in control and not know where this resource that's really important to me is going to come from.
Right. And
really depend on other people or keep finding alternate ways. Sometimes, you know, every day or every other week, and living with the uncertainty and adaptiveness, you know, and sometimes be willing to go without. So that's left me in quite a different place and kind of reinforce. I'm thinking of this analogy. It's like I'm a surfer or a body surfer, and I'm out in the water. And we don't know when the waves are coming, but have to stay aware and when it's happening. So
exactly.
It's kind of like all of life is like that.
And it's really heightened right now.
Yeah.
Really having to ride the waves whenever and wherever they come from. That's good. Thank you for weighing in on that. Appreciate it.
just to really open and flower, this quiet time, it's just like, just to release and let go and go inward and just evaluate my parenting style and my relationship with my son now that he's homeschooled. And I'm working from home. This is more hours that I've gotten with him ever. And so just to let go of boundaries, to just lay them down. For some reason I thought I needed them or whatever, or just some reason society thought that they were necessary. And to just realize that there's a lot of freedom and that it's not preset and that I can choose.
Beautiful. Nicely put. Thank you. Speaking of kids, I've got a question for you. I've got a neighbor who just had a baby, and she said that one of the positive, unexpected outcomes of the whole pandemic for her has been that she's now getting to spend months with her newborn, as opposed to having to turn around relatively soon and go back to work after a short maternity leave. So silver linings, all right? Jot down any silver linings that have appeared for you as a result of this event. Any positive, unexpected outcomes. See what comes up. All right, let's open this up. Anybody feel like sharing? Silver linings that have appeared as a result of this whole event.
I'd like to.
Okay, great.
I would say the luxury of time. Having worked so hard many years, and I am having the luxury of my garden, my home, projects I've wanted to do and am doing. And on some of your other questions, what a self-starter I am, and I will do it. Other silver lining is that I studied years ago with Dr. Jean Houston, and I've just signed up for her Optimum Human. And it's so beautiful to sit under that kind of intellect and languaging and expansive thinking. And it was so right for me. And I've been teaching for 20 years, but to be taught again, to be a student and to be able to write and contemplate. And also, I'm really aware that whatever shift you and I make shifts the whole of the whole universe, and we see the ramification of those shifts coming forth all over the world. And I think it's quite a mystical and exciting time.
Very much.
And I'm loving it.
All right. Good for you, and good for you for being willing to be a student again.
Lifetime learner, Greg. We have to
absolutely lifetime learning. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Let's hear. How about Diane?
What I've discovered is really kind of funny. I've always liked shopping for clothes, and I've always had a lot of clothes in my closet. I've discovered I've only worn about 6 or 8 things that are soft and practical, and I don't think I ever have to buy another piece of clothing. And a lot of other frivolity is falling away too. It's really total silver linings because I'm spending much less money and appreciating what I have so much.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful lesson. Thank you, Diana. Wonderful. How about Carrie?
I have found the benefit of time. Never, ever would I have ever agreed to a teleconference such as this. I would not have had the time. So I've been able to explore my inner, this isn't the right descriptive word, but laziness.
Okay.
What would I do if I had time? Maybe I'll just sit here. Maybe I'll just look out a window. Never have I ever done anything like that before. Time.
What a marvelous luxury.
Yeah.
Good for you. All right. Wonderful.
Greg, so time to move into our breakout.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay. So here's the question I'm going to pose to you for the breakout session. I had a dream recently where I was on a great big yacht sailing across the Atlantic Ocean, and it broke down in mid-ocean, and a rescue helicopter was sent, and it was piloted by an elderly man. Okay, so in looking at that dream, one of the things I realized is that we collectively are spending a great deal of time and energy either protecting or avoiding the elderly. Okay, and for good reason, of course, the statistics being what they are. But I think it may be that the elders are key to helping us weather this whole event, because they possess, at least theoretically or developmentally speaking, they possess something I think all of us need at the moment, which is wisdom. Okay, maybe just the wisdom to know the difference between what we can change and what we can't, but wisdom. And this is the kind of wisdom that happens as a result of being around a while, having lived through wars and natural disasters and depressions and pogroms and pandemics and, you know, gains and losses over time. So they are more emotionally experienced, I think, in navigating disruption. All right, in resilience and resourcefulness. All right, so it seems to me we should be spending less time avoiding the elderly and more time asking for their advice. Okay, so that is actually what I want you to do before you head into the breakout rooms. Take a couple of minutes, and what I'd love to invite you to do is, and you're welcome to close your eyes if this makes it easier for you to do, I want you to tap into your own inner elder. Okay, your own inner wise woman, wise man. All right, this could be your Buddha nature, your Christ consciousness, your higher self, your spiritual self. And just tap into that part of you for a minute and ask, what advice would you give me right now? What do I need to know about how to navigate this time and what this time means for me? All right, so take a minute and just tap into your inner wise person and ask what advice they would give you for how to navigate this period of your life, and write down what they say. And then we'll come back in a minute or two and bring you into the breakout rooms. All right, thank you guys for weighing in on the chat box. All right, here's another question. Shakespeare wrote Macbeth, King Lear, and Antony and Cleopatra during a plague. Sir Isaac Newton discovered gravity and invented calculus while he was in quarantine during the bubonic plague. All right. And I myself, I mean, at the risk of putting myself in the same sentence with William Shakespeare and Sir Isaac Newton, I have found that the pandemic has actually been one of the best things to hit my writing in years, because among other things, it's given me a tremendous focus and a very juicy subject to sink my teeth into. All right. So my next question is, what, if any, boons has the pandemic given to your creative life? All right. In what ways has this been a stimulus to your creativity, your inventiveness, your resourcefulness? See if anything comes up. All right. So anybody feel like sharing what came up for this question? Any ways in which you're finding that your creative life has been given a boost as a result? How about Elizabeth?
Yes, I have actually, now that I've had a little extra time, I was actually a fine arts major in college, and I've kind of found that I'm getting a little bit back more into my fine arts, which I've kind of put on the sideline, doing more graphic arts and web design and that type of thing. So I've kind of started dabbling a little bit in my fine arts. And another aspect of my job is people were requesting more video work. So that's kind of expanding my graphics knowledge. And I've been doing a lot of video editing and presentations and little advertisement type things for my clients. And that's a whole new creative outlet for me, which I'm really enjoying.
All right. So the fine art.
Yes, fine art.
A little bit more front and center. Interesting. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
How about Carrie?
I feel like this time has made me realize that just the silence is just really provocative, right? And maybe needed to get to that, the triangle, like you were talking about, that self-actualization, so that I didn't realize before it was so noisy in life, that the silence is really essential to get you to a place where you can experience the self-actualization or maybe explore it a little bit. And then with that, you know, you can use your own expression of art, whatever it may be, to express yourself.
What you hear in the silence.
Yes. The only part for me that's separate is that I haven't found my art. I don't know. I'm not an artist. I don't sing. I don't write. So I'm only halfway there.
Okay, so you're waiting for further marching orders. Well, you know, it's interesting, though, is that pretty much every spiritual tradition that I've ever run across at some point says to its followers some version of sit down and shut up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I realize the Bible says it nicer than that. They say, be still and know.
Yeah.
But the point is, at some point, in order to hear a calling, you need to be in the silence. Yeah. And that's something I think that the pandemic is kind of forcing on a lot of people at the moment. So thank you, Carrie, for weighing in. Diana?
Yeah, and I'm piggybacking on that because my meditations with my husband have gotten so deep and profound, and there's permission for extra time in that, and extra focus with that. And I'm realizing how much my inner wise woman wants to share with me if I'll just, as you say, sit down, shut up.
Right. Yes. That's great. All right. Thank you. So here's a question for you. I am right in the middle of reading a book at the moment by Patti Smith. Anybody remember Patti Smith, punk rock poetess? It's called Year of the Monkey. And what amuses me about this is that this is turning out to be the journals of a very out-of-the-box, unorthodox kind of a person, a rebellious kind of a person. And this is actually perfect. I didn't even realize this really when I got the book, what it was going to be about. But this is perfect for me at the moment because it's giving me some inspiration to get out of some of the boxes that I've put myself in over the decades. And so my question is, what are you in the middle of reading right now? And no matter what kind of book it is, even if it's just a detective novel, what is the theme of the book in just a sentence? What is the book about? And how does it speak to anything unfolding in your life right now? So what book are you reading? What's it about in a nutshell? And does it speak to anything that's unfolding in your own life at the present time?
Hey, Greg, I'll go.
Okay.
I've actually come across two fantastic books. One is by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind, which is a history of the psychedelic research done since 1950. And I was quite ignorant of that, and it was very, very interesting and historically. But the thing I'm reading right now after that is a book by Lawrence O'Donnell, who's a news anchor, and it's called Playing with Fire, and it's about the election of 1968. And he's trying to make a comparison to the 2020. And I don't see that yet, but I was in Vietnam in 1968, or I was on my way to Vietnam. I was in Army training, and it's just it's a fascinating look at what life was, what was going on in the world while I was in that military box, so to speak. And it's very informative. I'm just learning a lot about it. It's
fascinating.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying finding out what was going on.
And who was it in 1968? Was it Nixon?
Nixon. Johnson was running. Nixon. It was really a panoply of candidates. Nelson Rockefeller got in the race. Gene McCarthy.
McCarthy, right.
And Mitt Romney's dad, what's his name? He was in there too. I'm forgetting one though. Let me think. Romney, McCarthy, Kennedy, RFK.
Okay.
And that was the year he and Martin Luther King were assassinated at that same time. They were about 3 days apart.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Study.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else? Brooke?
Yes. Perfect introduction. I'm a huge Patti Smith fan.
All right.
I've seen her 3 or 4 times, and one of my hats in the Inside Edge has been teaching a course on the history of rock and roll once a year as a fundraiser. So the book that I'm reading is How Music Works.
Oh, David Byrne.
By David Byrne, which is really great book, wonderful book. But his main lesson, or what prompted him, is that it's all about, you know, his performing and how songs come together. But his main, where he's coming from, is that creativity isn't something inside you that you just call out, but that the constraints of the club where they started, or the constraints of not having money, or shape what the art becomes. So constraints are not a problem. They're part of what helps you create.
And what a perfect message that is for the pandemic. Yeah, there's an interesting phrase, falling up, or Joseph Campbell calls it directive crises. So these are setbacks that set you up for ultimately life-enhancing changes. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about to some degree. Very interesting. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, here's another question for you. Some people think that the pandemic is just a biological event. All right, it's just an organism wanting to reproduce. All right, there's no ultimate purpose. There's no grand scheme. There's no nature sending us to our rooms to think about what we've done, okay, which is one of the memes that's been making the rounds. This is just predation. This is not punishment, in other words. And then there are those who believe that this, and genuinely believe that this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, all right? This is the beginning of the great turning, the new consciousness, the long hungered for reset for humanity, all right? And needless to say, lots of opportunities in all this for spiritual optimists, okay? Plenty of lessons to be had in unity and interconnectedness and compassion, non-attachment. So to whatever degree you resonate to the second line of thinking, that there is a greater purpose and maybe even a teaching in this event, what do you imagine that would be for you? All right, not for humanity, but if this event has come to teach you a lesson, write down what you imagine that lesson would be. Just go with your intuition. Don't think too much about it. What do you think the lesson would be for you in all this? Anybody feel like sharing what came up for you for this question? What, if any, lesson would be in this for you? All right. How about Robin?
Yeah, good question. I feel for me, it's really been a wake-up call to focus on what's most important and what I love the most, and let go of what doesn't serve or doesn't matter. But the focus, and I've had the luxury of, I left a corporate job about 3 years ago. I've just sort of been enjoying doing whatever I want. I've had a lot of freedom. I've had a lot of busyness. And so this is just, it feels like this sense of urgency. It's time to, there's need, you have skills. It's time to step in more fully.
Wow.
And so that's, the lesson has really been an invitation to step forward.
Yeah.
And, get more serious about how I spend my time.
Wow. Good for you. That's powerful. Thank you, Robin. Let me see one more. How about Melissa?
Yeah, I think for me, I call it the space between the trapeze bars. I'm desperately hanging on to the one and trying to get brave enough to grab the other one.
To let go of the first one.
Absolutely. So it's that space in the middle that's going, oh!
Yep. Exactly. Oh, that's a great metaphor. I love that. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So here's one more question. I think we're going to be heading actually back into breakout sessions shortly. But a friend of mine recently told me that she just made what she called a dangerous prayer. A dangerous prayer. And that is that God not give her what she wants, but only what will most deeply serve her and her spiritual growth. A dangerous prayer. I once made one of those. It was that I not be afraid to speak my deepest truth in any given circumstance, cost what it may. Okay, so go with your intuition. What would be a dangerous prayer for you right now at this particular juncture? What would be a dangerous prayer?
Greg, is this something we're doing in the breakout room, or is this?
No, this is before that. Just a quick one before we sneak into the breakout rooms. What would be a dangerous prayer? All right, before we go into the breakouts, anybody feel like sharing what came up for this one? A dangerous prayer? I realize this might be rather personal. How about Tom?
So I asked God to give me financial, emotional, and physical and spiritual abundance. And now that I have all of these needs met, what would I do with my talents?
Aha.
Yeah.
What would I do with my talents now? Okay, that's good. That's good. Anybody else? Carrie?
I would pray and ask God to give to me the strength to reveal my stripped down self. I don't think I ever do.
To reveal it.
Yes, just to be open and, you know, let the world see almost a little bit of what you were saying, where you'd like to tell people how you really feel, or like let your voice be heard. But so I would like to reveal myself to the world, and I probably have never done that.
Wow. Wow. That's a good dangerous prayer. One from the Watch What We Wish For department. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So the breakout session questions really just a way of bringing some cohesiveness and closure to just even the questions we've been able to get to in this period of time. So all I want you to consider before we go into breakout is to take a minute and just skim through the responses that you've already generated to the questions that we've asked, and just circle any recurring themes. You're just looking for some patterns, anything that's come up that maybe has come up more than once in some of the questions. All right, so just take a minute and just skim through your responses to the questions and circle or underline, depending on what format you're using, any recurring themes. Take a moment before we break out and do that. With one another for a few minutes each, what you circled. What themes seems to already be arising just from the questions we've pondered.
Great. So Rebecca, will you break us into our breakout rooms now? I just want to welcome you back into the large group. And now Greg is going to lead us in talking about what we discovered.
So I just thought I would open it up. If anybody wants to share anything that they circled, and maybe even a little bit about what role that plays in their life currently. Does anybody want to share?
So my family came here in 1975, and so for the Vietnam War. And, you know, fear and safety was really huge in my childhood, you know, on a boat. And so, you know, and that, you know, raising a child, and my issues are certainly not his issues, because he certainly wasn't on a boat, right? And, you know, and then just realizing that, yes, I did experience it. And yes, it doesn't need to affect the next 7 generations of my lineage. And so that's really big, you know, and just self-imposed limitations, boundaries, self-imposed emotions. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your vulnerability there. Thank you. Some others? Anybody else? Let's hear one or two more. And any themes at all that arose for you that seem important? Great.
I appreciate what Don said, and especially because I think what's been going on for me was actually in my session with Tricia, I was saying that I find that my experiences in Vietnam were quite pivotal in my life, but I've denied them for I've been in denial of them for many years, most of my life, in fact. About 20 years ago or 10 years ago, when I went to my first reunion and came to grips with the fact that, yes, I'm a veteran. I went to Vietnam. I was a ranger, and I was a team leader, and I was a warrior, and it was not a popular war. But I meet with a group of guys, and I'll be meeting with them after this meeting today. We do a Zoom meeting every Wednesday. And they're all Vietnam vets, and we have quite a camaraderie. But it's helped me to realize that it's really to identify what that visit to your country, Thon, had in the effect it had on my life. And there were some good parts, there were some bad parts, but it was important in my life, and it's helped me grow and take responsibility in my life, and it was quite a gift, actually. But that's some of the things that's come up for me, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Interesting to have the perspective from that particular war from two different sides of people on the same Zoom session.
Yeah.
Brooke, thank you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. For one thing, that was beautiful, Gary. Gary's a great friend. And that I just feel, I've been watching and, feeling you owning all of those pieces of yourself in a really beautiful way. So it's really great. My share is in reflecting on the various questions, which are so well designed, I think. Thank you.
Yeah.
It came out as a simple understanding that I'm in transition. And I moved from the Irvine to the desert a year and a half ago, and dealt with some health issues, which are going great. But I'm not yet at my new beginning. I'm in the neutral zone, and I love that, William Bridges' model of transition.
Yeah.
And I'm really in the neutral zone. I've got lots of pieces of stuff and urges in the path I thought I would be going down in terms of my practice and my teaching, and I'm not there yet. But I'm having a wonderful time assembling my pieces but I don't know where it's going to. I don't know what it's coming together as yet.
Yeah. And that's kind of a microcosm of where a lot of us are at in this whole event, is just the uncertainty principle. What's going to happen next? We're in between something and something else, but we don't exactly know where. In a sense, we're between those two trapeze bars.
Yeah.
So this is the fine and fearsome art of hanging out in the dangle. Yeah, that's great. Plus, you got to love a book called Transitions, written by a guy named Bridges. I mean, how perfect is that?
Yeah.
So I think, Diana, we're going to turn it back to you at the moment.
Yeah. Are there just a couple more people you can raise your hand if you have something to share?
Absolutely.
Patty?
Brooke and I were just the two of us. And of course, I think it's true that we're all in that place of learning how to listen to ourselves, get to know ourselves, self-care. And David White talks about embracing the mystery, embracing the mystery. And it is a mystery, even for those who think they know. And it's a wonderful, wonderful time. And I liked Gregg's second train of thought of, yes, this is a huge shift for the planet. And when I embrace it that way, it's just glorious, glorious. So,
it's great.
And as I said to Brooke when he shared, he's feeding the hopper with just like a compost within you. And then one day that great oak of what your expression is to be will just burst forth.
Yeah. Which reminds me of actually something that David White once said at a conference I saw in Washington, D.C. He was the keynoter for the Psychotherapy Networker conference. And one of the questions he asked all of us was, what decision could you make today that your future self would thank you for?
Oh.
And I love that. And once we're coming out of the hopper, we will have some decisions to make about what we want our new normal to look like, or how we want to go forward. And I just love that question. a decision you could make today that your future self would thank you for?
That is so wonderful. I absolutely love that. I'll share a little bit about what's happening for me. I've really had time to reflect on my life and how my cooking career, my television show, and all my cookbooks and everything were about entertaining and gathering people around a table. And that led into founding The Inside Edge, which has been all about gathering people around the table. Right. And now we're gathering people around the table on Zoom, and everybody has a seat at the table. And it just has solidified my desire to complete this thread in my life of creating community in new ways that deepen conversations and help us be more authentic with each other. So because of this pandemic, I think I'm really discovering what that's beginning to look like. It's like the stepping stone that appears out of the mist when you're by the river. You can only see one at a time. And I see myself stepping into a whole new way of doing community.
Wow, that's exciting.